In our gospel today we know this is one of the resurrection appearances of Jesus to his disciples in Galilee. They had just been fishing, and Jesus called them ashore and made breakfast for them, and now he's reconciling with Peter. We know that Peter denied him 3 times, and so here's 3 times Jesus now saying, "Do you love me more than these? Do you love me more than these?" And 3 times he denied Jesus, 3 times he kind of confesses his love for him. A good healing moment. This shows us what God does for each one of us. Anytime we betray him or deny him or turn away from him, he comes to us and says, look at me, reconcile with me. Anytime, it's kind of one of the root words of the reconciliation. It basically means to look at me face to face, eyelash to eyelash. And that's where true love and reconciliation happens, where if you can look at somebody in the eyes and not turn away, there's true vulnerability there too, And when we turn away because we're shy or ashamed or embarrassed or we're hiding something, isn't it kind of weird when somebody won't look you in the eyes, You say, what's going on here? Is there a lack of trust? Is there a brokenness or a woundedness, or what's happening? When Peter denied Jesus, he was not looking at him. He was turned away from him. Every time we sin, we fall into this. When we're sinning, it's not because we're looking at Jesus eye to eye, face to face, and then we choose to deny him anyway. It's because we've already turned away from him. We've already stopped looking at him. We got distracted with something else. And so Jesus basically comes to us and says, look at me, face to face, eye to eye. Jesus has great plans for us. God has plans for our life. We know he has a plan and a purpose for each one of us, a mission, a reason why he made us. And part of life is discovering that and then living that out. And today we see also not just living life as part of God's plan, but even our death is a part of God's plan. Jesus said all this to Peter, signifying by what kind of death he would glorify God. God has even a time and a place and a way for us to die that's going to glorify him. Not just living our life to glorify him, but even the way we die will glorify him if we do it according to his will, according to his plan. And that's amazing to think. We get stirred up and we get shocked, and sometimes we get frozen or paralyzed at death. But God doesn't. Death is that doorway into eternal life with him. It's really the goal we're all working towards, is to get to heaven. The only way to get to heaven is to die first. And God has even the time and place of our death in mind and in his plans to help get us to heaven and to get other people to heaven. And we can say sometimes, what about those deaths that are, there's all kinds of different deaths, The time when if you die peacefully in your sleep, and the Jews would call that the kiss of God. Everybody wants the kiss of God, Then there's other deaths where they're more torturous, or there's more pain and suffering involved. There's more shock. We had a friend in our prayer team who just recently died with a heart attack out of nowhere. Nobody expected it. My own mom, she died of cancer. You don't expect it until it's there, and then there's suffering, there's pain involved. You're watching that. And they're suffering and they're in pain, then you're in pain because you're watching it too, right? And to believe, though, to have that trust in God's love for you, to believe that even that is part of God's plan. Look at how much Jesus suffered out of love for us. And that was part of God's plan to save us. And here is Jesus calling Peter to follow him in this same kind of death. Tradition says that Peter too was crucified. And why does this not bother God? Why does this not bother God? Because Jesus said to us, no greater love has someone than that they would lay down their life for another. Even if that laying down your life means enduring pain and suffering. That's the greatest acts of love. That's what we call, God's not afraid of suffering, because he transforms it and gives it redemptive value. Value that helps salvation of souls. Why is it valuable? Because laying down our life for someone is an act of love for them. And love is the value there. Love is the power to save. Love is the power to heal. You know, when a relationship is broken, how does it get fixed? Love. You know, forgiveness is an act of love. Mercy is an act of love. Laying down our life, laying down our right to be right is an act of love. We can love people back to health. There's a couple that I grew up with. They were ministers in the church, the Protestant church we grew up with, and they would constantly take people into their home who were suffering all kinds of illnesses, even cancer. And they would just, every day they would pray for them and with them, but mostly all day long they were just loving on them. Loving them, giving them attention, listening to them, serving them, giving them food. They would, and many times they would just love people back to health, and the illness would go away. Even cancer sometimes. So love is always the remedy, but this kind of remedy, this true love, is the selfless, sacrificial love that lays down its life for your friend. And to empower us to do this is what Jesus did for us on the cross. This is what we're receiving in the Eucharist, this love. And this empowers us when we receive the Eucharist. It empowers us to go and follow Jesus in this way of life, to lay down our life for one another, to say, I love you so much, I'll give up my right to be right, or I'll give up my life for you. This is the Christian way of life, the way of the disciple of Jesus. And so he says to you and to me, just like he said to Peter, come and follow me in this way of life.